Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rick Harris. Welcome to the session this afternoon. I'm going to run through a little bit of background information here, make sure all the technology is in place. I think we're really good to go. This is the first in a three-part series of webinars that are designed to, at a relatively high level, introduce you to the changes that ACT is making to the WorkKeys, the ACT WorkKeys assessments, and the NCRC platforms. Again, my name is Rick Harris. I've been with ACT for some time now. I've talked about WorkKeys all over the place for a long time. So some of this has changed that's new to me as well. And as I try to adapt and learn, I try to learn how best to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it to people. So this webinar should last probably closer to 45 minutes. On the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a control panel. In the control panel, you have a chat box. I am not going to pay attention to it. We do have some of our colleagues. I do have some of my colleagues in Iowa City monitoring that chat box. I'm coming to you from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So we'll be monitoring the chat. Please, I will tell you this. We want your questions. We're happy to have your questions, but try to hold some of the questions a little bit because. Believe me, we've heard questions, we've developed questions ourselves, and we are doing our best to answer the questions. So it's very likely, it's possible, that a question you may have early on in this session, that I may address it, as we go through the session. If not, we're certainly happy to have your questions. Use the chat box for that. If you want to chime in right now and say where you're joining us from, that would be awesome too. We've had people from all over the country in these sessions. We did one this morning, and I recognize some of your email addresses. I know where some of you are from. Otherwise, I see people from Covington, Virginia, Columbia, South Carolina, Kansas rolling in, Huntsville, Alabama. That's awesome. Joy's joining us from Oregon, Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Tennessee, all over the place, as we expect, literally. Occasionally we'll get somebody from Alaska, Hawaii, or even Guam. I see New Brockton, Virginia, Thibodaux, Louisiana, right down the road from me. South Carolina, all of it. Terry from South Carolina, perfect. Look, it's good to have you here. We're glad to have you. So that verifies two things, that you know how to use the chat box and that you can indeed hear me. So again, as I go through this, I'm going to try to give you some high-level stuff about what we're doing. There are going to be things that are not won't seem 100% specific, but this is the first of a series of webinars, so we don't expect to do full-blown demonstrations and things, but we are working toward this. So over the next few weeks, we'll have a series of webinars. So let me go ahead and get started, and then again, keep in mind that you have the chat box there available. You also have a materials panel, and I put several things in there. Both a couple of documents, a couple of links to various documents to our website, but I'll talk about that all a little bit more in just a few moments. So anyway, this webinar is a general overview of what's changing. We're going to be discussing what's new to the WorkKeys system, what will remain familiar. Some people don't like change, so it's important to know not only what changes, but what's going to stay the same. So we will have time at the end to go ahead, and we hope to address the benefits, but we'll have time at the end to go ahead and go into Q&A. But again, I think if you hold on to your questions for a while, you're going to find that a lot of those questions are answered, and then when we go and visit our website where we're outlining all this, you'll find that that a lot of questions are already covered there in great detail. So, but anyway, we want to make sure that your questions are indeed answered. So this is a broad overview. Let's go ahead and roll right on through this. Let's start with an introduction to WorkKeys, okay? I'm going to ask a poll question at this point. This is one of those things that sometimes when I do presentations and I'm live with people, I typically just look out at my audience and say, okay, well, I want to know this. I'm curious. So I'm going to ask you a question here. And just be honest, what I mean is I'm going to ask you about your familiarity with WorkKeys. And what I mean is that, while I know a lot of you are in education, I've looked at the registration. Occasionally, a few of you in this webinar are workforce development. But while you're educators, I understand that maybe you only deal with WorkKeys assessments. So from that standpoint, you think you're very knowledgeable. But if that's all you've ever done is touch the assessments, I don't know that that's totally knowledgeable. I'm talking about WorkKeys as a complete system. So here's the poll question for you. All right, so I'll give you a little time to vote. I have watching the percentages. And again, this is a poll question. You can click on these out on your screen there and respond. So far, we got about 85% voted. 87. All right, I'm getting close. Once we get to about 90%, I'm going to cut it off. 89. So perfect, 90%. I'm closing the poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. All right, so there's the answer. Okay, we've got an education audience here, people that are interested in WorkKeys. You're here to attend this, and basically we've got 5%, 9% that say they're very knowledgeable, 28% pretty knowledgeable, 43% somewhat knowledgeable, and then 14 and 7 little and not very knowledgeable, respectively. You know, that's kind of interesting, but I'm going to just use that just in the back of my mind as we go forward to help make sure you know, that I explain things adequately. So let's start by talking about WorkKeys as a tool and the language. When it was really designed, one of the goals was for WorkKeys, ACT WorkKeys, to be a common language of communication. Various stakeholders, whether it be an employer trying to describe the skills required for a particular job, an educator trying to help a student acquire the skills needed for a job, or people in workforce development that are also trying to make these connections. It's a language that can define this. And why is that possible? Well, it's because it's made up of several different components, and often I find that educators are not necessarily as familiar with the various components as what you would expect. So I'm going to kind of describe those things to you and go forward looking at, goodness gracious, the screen just went away. I apologize. There we go. Got the buttons back in the right spot. So really, one of the things that we want to convey in part of what we're doing, changing, was we're trying to make this a little bit more consistent. So ACT WorkKeys is going to be the really umbrella branding, if you will, for the whole system. And the system now is going to be organized, as you see it here, really in 3 particular areas: the assessments and the NCRC credential, the National Career Readiness Certificate. A lot of times I find educators when they hear WorkKeys, they think of tests. Sometimes they think of a single test. They think WorkKeys is indeed a single test, when it is actually a series of tests. But ultimately, the 3 items, the 3 legs of the stool, are the assessments and the credential that is derived from or earned by taking the assessments, and then curriculum test prep. We've had elements of curriculum, elements of test prep for years. The Key Train, Career Ready 101. We've had readiness indicators. We've had practice tests for sale. All of these things spread out all over the place. What we're hoping to do is bring all these things together. So this is a real powerful, cohesive mesh for you for curriculum and test prep. And then the other piece, and this is one that educators are typically not familiar with, and sometimes they've heard about it, but some of the times not at all, is this profiling component. One of the things about WorkKeys that gives it such power is that from the beginning there's been a profiling component. Well, what is profiling? This is the whole process of using the WorkKeys system, and people that we at ACT train to do job analysis. They go out and work with employers to identify skills required for a job, tasks that are done on the job, skills required to complete the task, and we get to capture that data. So between profiling and the services of cataloging all that data, we've got a powerful tool that can be used, particularly in education, but a lot of ways, to help learners understand what skills do I need. These are my goals. What skills do I need? So those are the three components. Ultimately, we want to talk about WorkKeys, but we're going to talk about the whole system and the various parts that make up the whole system. So there you see that. If there's questions about that, that's when you can ask questions later on. Look, and if you want to contact me afterwards, I'll be glad to assist you as well. But anyway, why are we doing some of this? We're doing it because of customer feedback. We've heard this stuff. We've heard it. If you've been done WorkKeys testing, we've heard complaints about locating information. It's too hard. People can't finish it and finish the test, and so how's it a good measure, and all these other things. We've heard about our systems that sometimes crash, and we're not going to try to sweep that under the rug. These are things that are true, but we've heard this stuff. We don't always move as quickly as we'd like, but we are working as hard as we can to move in that direction. We're looking to go ahead and respond. We're going to build on the proven value of the NCRC and the assessments to create an even better, more robust and aligned system. The assessments that going forward will have new content, new question items, a new platform that will be more robust, more stable, okay, expandable. The holistic approach to updated ACT WorkKeys system ensures its continued relevance going forth in the 21st century to 21st century workplace needs. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into the exciting changes being made to the entire system. We want to talk about what's new, and talk about what's new, what stays the same, and what benefits you can expect from that. So what's new? First and foremost, we've improved our testing platform to be more robust with a focus on usability and improved reliability. You're going to see more about that in a little while because we've got some explanations when we go tour the website. The assessment content has also had an overhaul to ensure that the items, the questions, are relevant to the 21st century workplaces. We know that skills change, we know that needs change, and we are working to accommodate those changes. While each of the assessments continues to measure the same skill characteristics, we've updated the content to better match what's actually happening in the workplace. So along those lines, we've also altered the title of the assessments. So this will try to make it a little simpler as we continue to explain WorkKeys to people for the first time. We want to be real consistent about this. So we're changing the assessment titles. So what are we doing? Well, to be clear, concise, and representative of the skills addressed, we're taking applied math and it's shortened to applied mathematics and it's shortened to applied math. And that's a minor change. We're also taking what was called reading for information and renaming it to what it really is, workplace documents, the ability to read and understand and interpret workplace documents. And then locating information, that was always a tough one. Anytime you talked about locating information, you had to follow immediately after the title and with an explanation of what it was. It's now graphic literacy. This makes perfect sense because that's what it is, that's what's needed on the job, and so why not call it that? So the key assessments still continue to measure the skills required to apply math to solving workplace problems, to comprehend and use workplace documents, and also to use information contained in workplace graphics. We expect and intend that these new titles will bring clarity and consistency to your experience with WorkKeys. All right, with the continued focus on your overall WorkKeys experience, we will now be offering a greater availability for retrieving certificates, the NCRC. You're going to like this. This is awesome. While we continue to offer paper certificates, just like we've done in the past, when you test, if you want to order certificates from us, you'll get a packet at some point and you can distribute them. However, you're going to now be able to retrieve downloadable PDF versions of the certificates. This is something the examinees, the individuals, will be able to do and print themselves. So that means that they can share them anytime they want, print another copy, staple it to their resume, put it in the folder that they leave with a potential employer. Makes it easy, increases their opportunity to share those things with employers. and they could still share them electronically as well. So there won't, somebody asked earlier, if they print additional copies, will they be charged for that? No, it's a PDF that they can control. They can print additional copies as they see fit, as needed. So another exciting change, and this is for the people that deal with paper testing. Okay? Paper testing is still common. A lot of high schools do paper testing because it's convenient to, when you're testing a large number of individuals at the same time. Who has computer labs to accommodate 200 students? But you can easily figure out how to put 200 students into various rooms and distribute paper tests and do that. So we are streamlining that process with a new online portal for ordering the paper materials, because you've always had to order the materials, you test, then you return the materials, then you get scores back from us. We're trying to make that process easier by a brand new portal, so you can order those tests, entering your orders for the score reports to make it easier, more streamlined. We'll be able to show you more about this portal in our next series of webinars. Now, as part of the overall improvement to the entire WorkKeys system, we are phasing out certain assessments. Okay, be assured that none of the assessments that we're phasing out have anything to do with the NCRC. Okay, but it's part of our continued focus on a holistic approach to the workplace. We're retaining relevant soft skill assessments for the time being, but the key thing here is that people use, if you look at the statistics, the data, the job profiles that we have, reading, what was reading for information, workplace documents, applied math, graphic literacy, those are the skills that make up those jobs. Those are the assessments that people use. It was just confusing to have a lot more assessments that people didn't use, but yet they were on every piece of material that we distributed. So we're making those changes. We're also making changes to the curriculum. We've had I told you earlier, we had elements of curriculum, we've had elements of test prep. It's all been scattered. Key train over here, career ready one over here, sample test items over here, practice tests over here for sale, WorkKeys readiness indicators over here for sale. We're bringing all that together, and we're making sure that the curriculum is both enhanced and fully aligned to any changes made to the assessments. We understand that curriculum is very powerful. There's no point in testing someone to determine they're a little low in a skill needed for an occupation without giving them an avenue to build and acquire those skills. So we'll be sharing more about the courses and what's changing in curriculum in the webinars in the coming months. So bear with us and keep with us on that. We'll have more information. You should also know too, even though in the educational group there are not all that many profilers. However, sometimes people identify in the education group because they're part of a community college. That's where a large number of our profilers reside, as community college employees. We will be updating this profiling process as well, and we're going to be furnishing at no charge profilers. They're going to get web-based training on any of the changes to the processes. So they're going to have a series of webinars more specific to the profiling process and profilers going forward. And we'll have timelines and things of that nature as we move on in the next few weeks. So we want to be partners in this process with you. We want to be partners in change agents. But anyway, we'll be there throughout this transition, trying to make sure that you are supplied with the most current information, answering your technical questions, making sure that everybody's happy, and people like me that are part of the customer success team, that's a challenge to us to make sure that everybody's successful. So anyway, let's talk about what stays the same. Okay, it's nice to know that there'll be some things that provide comfort by not changing. So let's talk about a few of those. Fundamentally, the WorkKeys system remains focused on measuring and developing critical workplace essential skills, critical workplace skills. The applied math, graphic literacy, workplace documents, they're still the three most in-demand foundational skills in the U.S. workplace. Okay, by and large, the characteristics that we're measuring have not changed in broad strokes. They have not. We're changing them a little. Yes, the WorkKeys assessments continue to measure these foundational skills, and they continue to be what's needed to attain the NCRC, the National Career Readiness Certificate, which remains the most widely recognized credential for work readiness. Over 3.6 million certificates have been issued. So, what else is staying the same? Well, while WorkKeys continues to measure an individual's reading comprehension of workplace documents, the ability to apply math to solve workplace problems, the capacity to use information in workplace graphics, that's true. Profiling remains a very integral part of the system. Okay? The registration process and test administration process will remain largely the same. Okay? Even though we've got a new test engine, okay, the testing side, when an examinee sits down to take the test, the engine driving that is new, so that's more robust, more powerful, less susceptible to issues. Okay? Overall, though, your side of doing the registration and test administration with the Valida system will remain the same. So you can interact with that on a regular basis as you've done. No additional training needed there. So the processes will be familiar, but how testing works underneath the surface will be improved. So it won't really impact you as far as, you know, knowing something is going on differently that makes it more robust. That the part that you interact with remains largely the same, as do the fact that we award certificates at the same 4 levels: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Additionally, you continue to access certificates through myworkkeys.com and through Registrar. And if someone has taken WorkKeys in the past and earned a certificate, and they take WorkKeys going in the future and earn a new version of the certificate, myworkkeys.com will have all of that. All of that data will be aggregated there. Very, very powerful. So, what else? As ACT continues to serve our major stakeholders, such as employers, job seekers, educators, economic development, by maintaining a fundamental continuity of features, WorkKeys remains, okay, those are our stakeholders, WorkKeys remains research-based and criterion referenced, okay? We continue to focus on assessing contemporary, relevant, broad workplace skills that can result in a valuable, industry-based, portable credential, the NCRC. This will have no impact on some of our other things where we have people that use the NCRC as part of a stackable credential, things like the National Association of Manufacturers and others that use the NCRC as the first layer in their stack of credentials. The NCRC is still issued at multiple levels, okay? Bronze, silver, gold, platinum. It still continues to use multiple choice formats in the assessments. It still will have scenario-based items with authentic workplace stimuli, and it retains some assessments remain unchanged. So overall, we believe the process will remain very familiar, but also be much better suited for your needs. So there we go. Let's talk about a few of the benefits. Now, some of these may not be as obvious, but we'll talk about a few of them anyway. Some of them are. So we've heard you and we respond to your needs. We've made substantial improvements, okay, to address the feedback we get from customers, and we continue to focus on you. One of the things that makes it better is by narrowing to the three core assessments. It helps us to strengthen that common language between all these stakeholders, because it was confusing before. 8 skills. Over the years, we had 4, 6, 8 skills, and the fact that many people did not use them, it became confusing. By narrowing to the 3 core skills that are so common to everything, to all the jobs, all the occupations, this makes it much easier. It sets the stage for better, more cohesive communication overall. And we're building also digital tools to assist with curriculum profiling. I think this is a big deal. Okay, we've had the profiling process with profilers doing the job analysis at factories and offices and facilities around the country to get that data on jobs, and we have had some element of curriculum profiling. but it's usually been a little bit more challenging. It's like people like the brick masons in Lansing, Michigan, or the carpenters in St. Louis, or the ironworkers in Western Michigan, using a profiler to come in and do analysis of their curriculum. We've had community colleges that use a profiler to do analysis of their skills curriculum. We're trying to make this easier with new tools to assist in that curriculum profiling process, really opening the door to anyone that's putting together a training program, with a skills or a certificate program or an on-the-job training program, to be able to look at the curriculum requirements and get a good snapshot, and now have a tool with WorkKeys assessments that you can use to determine if this person, the individuals are qualified to enter the program, can be successful within the program. So we continue on a holistic approach to workplace skills, complementing cognitive skills with soft skills and fully aligned curricula. It offers a richer and broader reflection of the individual's overall workplace skills. Certificate levels will offer clear 21st century representation of actual individual skill sets. So assessment content is going to be a little bit more contemporary, okay? Obviously, as requirements and skills and technology changes and is more reflected in the workplace, the types of documents that you read. Now it's not uncommon to read computer-type manuals, where 15 years ago it was not nearly as common. So those kind of things are reflected in our more contemporary content. We're improving technology to offer you the best experience possible. We want a system that's robust, powerful, scalable, easy to develop and grow. Let's talk a little bit about skills in general as part of the benefits. We did a research piece. A lot of people that meet up with ACT the first time don't necessarily know much about us. We are not-for-profit, and we do a lot of research. And a few years ago, we did a research piece called A Better Measure of Skills Gaps. I've shared this with a lot of educators. When it first came out, it was one of my popular things. I would, here, you have to see this, you have to see this. And so the better measure of skills gaps, and I have a quote here from that document. The link to this is in your materials panel, by the way, and you'll see several places that you can access this document, but it's not a big thing. It's about, I don't think it's 20-something pages, but it's a really good piece. It's designed to assist economic and workforce development folks as they face an increasing mismatch, the skills gaps. And it's really just designed to give you some information. I've got a quote that I want to share with you just for 1 second. I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'll read it to you, and I'll try to make sure I get it right. But just let me tell you what the better measure of skills gaps is. The researcher there took, and I said a minute ago, 21,000 jobs that we have in our database of job profiles. At the time this piece was done, it wasn't quite 21,000, but it was substantial, don't get me wrong. What she did is she took those 20,000 jobs at the time and sorted those out into various growth sectors. Actually, she looked at 4 growth sectors of the economy. She looked at manufacturing, manufacturing, construction, healthcare, and energy, growth sectors of the economy. And then she kind of sampled some of the jobs, because obviously, that's several thousand in each of those 4 sectors. She sampled some of the jobs at 3 different levels. One, entry or low level, and that would be like entry-level jobs, something you might attain right out of high school. Mid-level jobs, perhaps 2-year certificate programs, apprenticeships, or associate degree, whatever it may be. And then high level, something that might require a baccalaureate. And she looked at the jobs there, and then she looked at the data on people that have taken the WorkKeys assessments. And it's really incredible, but here's the quote. We find there's a new reality for both workforce developers and education training providers, that a significant segment of today's labor force does not have the requisite skills demanded by employers. So, having said that, this is one of the things that we're doing, these changes that we're making to WorkKeys, to the ACT WorkKeys assessments and the NCRC, these are things that we're doing to aid in rectifying that unfortunate reality. So we're updating our assessments to keep pace with the increasing use of technology in the workplace, as I mentioned a moment ago. The system will be more agile and flexible, offering the ability to continuously update and strengthen materials. We're also improving the overall user experience to streamline this process, okay, to streamline the relationships between the labor force and employers, as well as our customers' interaction with the various components of the system. We want to offer a stable testing platform with robust technologies backing it so that your experiences will be reliable and easy. And then finally, we're truly focused on doing our best to aid in solving the skills gap dilemma. These improvements take the ACT from a really good product, the NCRC. These improvements take the NCRC from being a good product, a good tool, to a really great product and a great series of tools. So here's the link, and again, the link, I told my colleagues having a link on a PowerPoint slide doesn't do any good because it's real tiny and you're not going to write it all down. So we've included the link in the materials panel so you can go there and it has the better measure of skills gap. They also have a 2-page summary somewhere if you'd like that. I'll give you my contact information when this is over. All right, so let's talk quickly about the future and the past, but before we get into the questions where we have Q&A about future and past, let me walk through with you the website so you can see kind of where you can go, what resources we have that are available. We've created this website, so bear with me about 10 seconds while I do a little quick shift of various things here and come up with this website. So there I paused on this slide, and you don't even know that I paused because I'm rearranging the deck chairs here. And let's go ahead and minimize that. And now, perfect. All right, so this is what our website looks like currently. There it is. I was waiting for it. Okay, now it's there for most of you anyway. All right, so on the website, we are in the process of doing some work to ACT.org, the whole website. So we put this up as a separate little section. So really you need to kind of bookmark this address, and it's also in your materials panel, the link to this particular website, so you don't have to write it down. But what we're doing here is we've got several pages. The main page, the simple main page, is designed to show you what's going on at a glance. And the big thing here is probably the timeline. So we're pretty aggressive on this. There's a lot of activity going on, but you can see very quickly what the timeline we're shooting for on this. And we really, really hope to nail this. So far we're looking pretty good. But ultimately, here's the timeline, so it gives you some big, broad strokes of information. And then as we go down the page, we've got various pieces here talking about the investment part of it, the updated assessments, what we're doing, why we're doing this, talking about applying resources. So we're putting resources to the assessments that will remain and which ones are sunsetted. And then I don't really like that term, but which ones are being phased out. On the right-hand side over here, there's a panel that has highlights. Some of you have been here before because obviously this is where the links are to register to these webinars. So these are the series of webinars that obviously the one that we're in is the one here for educators today. And then we're doing workforce development, individuals, workforce and economic development next week, profilers the week after. And then we'll have a series of March webinars that go up as we get into more detail going forward. Now, this is the first kind of a beginning of the conversation. As we get into more detail, we'll put March dates. Those will probably go up pretty soon, maybe within the week. There's also a single one-pager here with a little tiny link. It's hard to see, but it's a PDF that pulls up a one-pager. But what's probably more important here is the frequently asked questions. And this is what I was telling you earlier. If you have questions, I was trying to get you to hold off on your questions, because ultimately it may be answered in the course of the webinar with me talking, and it certainly may be available here, because I think we've done a really good job of kind of looking at and accumulating both questions that we think people would have as well as questions that we've already gotten from people. So they're organized into our audiences: workforce economic development, profilers, which have a specific set of needs, employers and employment organizations, and then educators, and then technical. So if we go to educators, you'll find that we have a list of questions. And some of these questions are going to be the same in every audience. For example, what is the timeline? Well, everyone has that question, so it doesn't, it says, well, there's not different questions. Well, a lot of these audiences have similar questions, and so it may not vary very much. But anyway, so you have questions here. Any of these have answers. So you can take what's with the updated versions, new and updated content, what are the key benefits, what formats will be available, both paper, pencil, online versions. I'm not going to go through all the Q&A, but I want you to see that they are here. What kind of technical data, validity evidence will be available. We're going to have timing studies, cognitive lab studies, scaling studies, cut store studies. All this will be available as we launch the new assessments, which are coming in June. The other thing that we have here is, and more importantly probably, is if your question is not answered, then this section over here on the lower right-hand side is for you. Go ahead and put in your basic information, first and last name and email. We don't need anything else beyond that. Tell us what is your role within your organization, and then go ahead and give us your question. Now, if it says, it could be a question that we just respond to you, okay, and answer your question. It could be a question that we think is perfect, and we should put this into the rest of the other questions. So we're going to answer one way or the other. We'll answer you directly and give you an answer to your question. And it could be, if it's a common question or we think it's useful and everybody needs to know the answer to that question, or we haven't answered it already, then we'll add it to our list. And we update this periodically, but we answer the questions pretty quickly. So there's the thing there. Let me return to the main scene and take a look at technical for just a second. Okay, over here on the right-hand side is technical. This will be applicable to everyone. But there's common things here. Okay, what are specific areas of these changes? Here's what I like. What's being done to prevent interruptions as we have now? The new testing platform will be run through Amazon hosting services. That sounds pretty impressive to me. I've streamed videos from Amazon, and I assume lots of people around the country and around the world do as well. If they've got the bandwidth to handle streaming video, I think they can handle us. So all the Q&A right there, different requirements, transition to the new platform, no installation, review browser requirements, you get the idea. All the questions, I encourage you to spend just a few minutes. It doesn't take long to run through these, and it will truly answer all the questions you might have. And then if you have other specific questions, by all means, please reach out to us and contact us. So anyway, that's our website. It's in your materials panel. And the link to it is in your materials panel. On the main page, I will point out one other thing. There's down at the lower, very bottom right, there is a blank here to receive updates. And this is simply a place for you to input your email address. We will not spam you. We don't sell it. But we periodically will announce when things are changing, when we update the frequently asked questions. We're periodically, during this process, going to communicate with people, and at any time you feel it's too much, you can unsubscribe and get off the list. But we want to make it as easy as possible for people to be and remain informed as we're going through this process. All right, so let me flip back over here, and then we're going to switch into some Q&A here, and then we'll wrap up. All right, hopefully we've got most of the questions in. Look, I encourage you to continue to go to the website. If you, again, we had the page up there. If you go to the website, go to the education FAQs, the frequently asked questions. If you don't see the answer there, then put a question in that box at the bottom of that page. Tracy's asking others more about the scoring methods, and that stuff is in process right now. We'll have more information as soon as it's available. So the best source is to go there on the very first page. If you don't have a question, at the very first page, there's a place that you can just input your first and last name and email address, and that'll keep you up to date. So as we update those frequently asked questions and add more information, you'll know about that. So we'll have all that stuff forthcoming, and we'll have new webinars coming over the next few weeks. Victoria is asked, how are you encouraging employers to use it? We've been working on that for quite a few years. If you were to look at our data, the data continues to grow about employers using the NCRC. I tell people all the time, there's always going to be an employer that's just happy with the old fog the mirror test. If somebody just shows up, that's okay. But more and more employers, you see the results of our research pieces. I encourage you to look at those. I'm going to go ahead and flash those resources up on the screen for you in just a second. But if you look at those, that's the type of information that when employers see, they understand. So we're doing our part. You have to continue to talk to employers, help explain this, and we're trying to make it more concise, more simple, easier to understand, and more robust all at the same time to make your job, our job, all of it easier and a better success, helping individuals achieve education and workplace success. So there's the website here, act.org/WorkKeysNews. There is a resource document that's in the materials panel. The resource document has links to both the better measure of skills gap and another report that is based off of those 21,000 job profiles called Career Readiness in the U.S. It's a powerful, powerful document that looks at skills gaps. This is all the evidence that you need on the education side to help people prepare. It's nice if an employer asks for all this stuff, but if we have data that says people don't have the skills needed for the jobs, whether the employer's asking for it or not. And so that's part of our responsibility to see if we can work on that side of the equation. Timeline, again, there's the website, the link to that, and then if you have questions that I can answer, I'm happy to serve as a liaison to the entire team. You can ask me questions if I can't answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll certainly find the right people. Montgomery says, is there a list of jobs so we can show our kids what the test could help them? Use that document, Career Readiness in the U.S. 2015. It's a sampling. We have all of those 21,000 jobs available. You can search them. You can go online and search them. The data is there. It's publicly available. We're happy to share it. But just looking at that Career Readiness in the U.S. document from 2015 is a really good starting point. It doesn't show you all 21,000. It shows you samples of jobs that people can attain and the skills required to get those jobs. So anyway, that's it. If there are additional questions, you can contact me after the fact. Otherwise, I'm going to say thanks for your time and attention this afternoon. Hope you have a great remainder. Hope you have something exciting planned for your evening on Valentine's Day. Hope you have a great remainder of the Valentine's Day and a great remainder of the week. And we'll see you hopefully on one of the other webinars as we continue to put more meat on the bones of this up and coming system.